Hello, everybody. It's time to do the traditional interview within the Biotech Atelier. And usually I'm interviewing people who have, in a way, supported the Biotech Atelier during the years. Dr. Pierre Meulien, is the third interviewed person after Edward Abrahams, who is the CEO of the Personalized Medicine Coalition in the United States, and Bogi Eliassen. Let me introduce first briefly Pierre. Dr. Meulien, or Pierre, is currently the Executive Director of the Innovative Medicine Initiative. He has an excellent scientific background, being with a genetic education. Then he has been working in a private company, and now he is leading the Innovative Medicine Initiative. Pierre, what is actually the Innovative Medicine Initiative? Could you please explain to the audience?
Well, first of all, Dimitar, thanks very much for inviting me to this interview. It's always a pleasure to see you. Unfortunately, not physically in Sofia, but hopefully next time that would be a treat for me. So IMI, the Innovative Medicines Initiative, represents a very long-term commitment, in fact, from both the public, represented by the European Commission, and the private, represented by the European pharmaceutical industry through FPA. And so it's a public-private partnership. We have a very significant budget to deploy. Since 2008, we actually are in our second second phase, if you like, of IMI. There was IMI 1 that started in 2008, and IMI 2 that started in 2014. And we have allocated almost all of the 5 billion euro that have been allocated to this very significant public-private partnership. So what we do is we launch calls, and we build quite large projects from across the public and private parts ecosystem in Europe. And we tackle those usually big challenges that are part of a strategic research agenda that was co-developed by the public and private side, with a lot of consultation from stakeholders European-wide as well. And we tackle those issues that are that specifically lend themselves to public-private partnerships. So it's no surprise that we either tackle things that are market failures, like antimicrobial resistance, where there's very little incentive for the private side to invest in something where the volume market, traditional market dynamics do not work. We also tend to work on very complex diseases where we're a bit stuck in, for example, Alzheimer's disease and dementia, where the industry has already invested an awful lot of money, but unfortunately failing in this area because of the complexity of diseases and of disease. And now the private sector has come together like normally competitors, but now working in partnership with the public side in many Alzheimer's disease projects. I think our portfolio is around the 250, 300 million euro scale all through about 10 or 12 projects. And those partnerships really seek to understand much more about the biology of Alzheimer's disease and try in a pre-competitive manner. Of course, these companies will, once they find something, they can compete downstream. But here, we're building these to really have clarity in how to move forward scientifically and biologically in developing new Alzheimer's treatment. So we do those things. We also build consortia that represent gaps or fill gaps in the ecosystem. There was one big gap in the pediatric clinical research area. There's another one in use of drugs in pregnant women and those who are lactating. These are particularly, you can imagine, very sensitive areas where ethical considerations need to be very top of the agenda. The regulatory bodies are very interested in experimentation in these areas because they're a bit neglected, and they're very important targets where drugs need to be tested in these targets. But for many reasons, they've been neglected. So we've built projects, very large projects, one called Conception and another called C4C, that deal with these things. So those are the kind of areas. And I know you're going to ask me a question on COVID and other, and how we
were. Next topic.
That's the other kind of angle where we've been able to respond to public health emergencies in terms of whether it be Ebola at the time, and that's a very good success story that we can talk about. And also, of course, COVID, and I know we're going to talk about that.
Yes, that was an excellent description, by the way. And also, I have in the website that IMI1 and IMI2 have ended up with 3,800 high-ranking publications with an excellent impact factor. But I have no doubts that there are also other outcomes from your activities. Do you have any other outstanding outcomes which can be mentioned briefly?
Of course, Dimitar, and I will be brief. So I'm, I think 4 weeks ago or so, the European Commission approved an Ebola vaccine that was that was developed in an IMI project with a partnership, and a very important partnership, with the Janssen Pharmaceuticals and many other public sector groups across Europe. And so this is a huge milestone, and from the beginning to the end, I think it took 5 years for this to occur. And I know people are talking about, in the COVID vaccine, we're looking at a year or two, but at the time, this is a kind of world record as well for 5 years, because normally vaccine development takes 10 to 15 years. And so this was fast tracked, and but as with COVID, of course, the fast tracking does not mean that we cut corners on the safety issues in vaccine development, which is of crucial importance. But that is that's a big output from the portfolio. We've also got a lot of rapid diagnostic projects in Ebola that were in that program. That was a 300 million euro program too. And so we can do things at this scale that is Europe should be proud of. And I think that there are many other stories, anecdotes, and lots of good results coming from AMR. We've developed a lot of different new molecules in the antimicrobial resistance portfolio. We have a clinical research platform built for Alzheimer's disease, and these things are absolutely crucial for us going forward in being able to bring new innovations to the citizen.
Thank you once again. Now to my favorite topic, which you mentioned briefly. I called COVID zeitgeist. It's something which has completely taken over, hijacked the public agenda. I have no doubts that IMI is doing a lot in this direction, but has the COVID impacted in a way negatively the work of IMI?
Well, I mean, it's of course we've had to change the way we do things in IMI, because everybody is working remotely. At least 95% of us are working remotely. And this, when we put our COVID-19 call out in March, it was a very quick turnaround in terms of a governing board decision, because we had to of course, reprioritize our budget, our whole budget for this year. We were able to liberate, with the approval of the governing board, 72 million. This was put in partnership. It was a single stage call, so it meant that everybody was regrouping together to compete for those funds. We received 144 submissions. So this was, and it did turn the office upside down. And my thanks to my colleagues who were able to, through very intense weeks, make sure that the evaluations went smoothly. We had, I think, we had about 50 experts. We had 6 remote in parallel panels to evaluate these projects. So it was, in that respect, it did have a big impact on how we were doing things and what we were doing, and reprioritize the whole portfolio for this annual work plan. But as importantly, I'll tell you a bit about some of the projects. It was highly competitive, obviously, with 144, and we've chosen 8 projects to fund. But as importantly, when we looked at the overall portfolio in IMI, there were many projects that were already existing in IMI that had very direct relevance to COVID. One was ZAPI, it was a zoonosis preparedness project that was started 5 years ago. And one of their topics that they chose to look at from as a model system was actually MERS, which is, of course, as you know, a coronavirus. And out of that came some monoclonal antibodies, humanized monoclonal antibodies that cross-neutralize with COVID-19. And those are subject of new European Commission projects, and hopefully we'll be able to develop those for human use. So that's those things. There are many data platforms like the Eden project that we have that have been repurposed. They've done a huge effort looking at real-world evidence on safety data of some molecules that had been hoped would have been useful for COVID, like hydroxychloroquine, and you know how that story fell out. But I mean, all of this was really useful. And we've got projects that have been initially looking at neurological diseases that have been able to be repurposed for COVID because of the particular tools that have been developed. So a number of those and of clinical research infrastructures that we've built for AMR are now being repurposed for COVID. So there's a whole host of things that have been achieved through past projects that are now in a very prominent feature of the COVID ecosystem. And with regard to our own call, now I'm not going to go through all of the projects because we don't have time, but have a look at them on the website. And there's one in particular that I'll mention. It's called CARE because it's the biggest. It's actually a 70 plus million euro project focusing on new therapies, and includes is on a lot of big pharma industries. So Janssen and Takeda are major players in that. It's on the public side. It's led by the Inserm Group in Paris, and that's a very nicely matched, both about 35 million from IMI and 35 million from the industry, and we hope that this will have major impact on down the line, both repurposing for immediate looking at the current outbreak, but as importantly, we're probably going to see other coronavirus outbreaks in the future, and very important, or other cycles of COVID-19, and very important to have the all of the tools in the toolkit to be better prepared for those. And the preparedness is the real. It's a very tough nut to crack, but I think we've demonstrated in the Ebola response that the world is better now prepared for another Ebola outbreak because of the vaccines and the diagnostics and things that have been developed, and we can do the same for COVID. We have purposely avoided the vaccine area in our investments. We focused on therapeutics and diagnostics, and that is because purely, as you know, there's an awful lot happening in the vaccine area. There are billions of euro of investment. The Commission, the European Commission, are investing separately in an organization called CEPI, the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Initiative. And so we didn't want to fragment the ecosystem further, and so that was a government board decision that we would avoid the vaccine area.
Thank you. So there are two major stakeholders in IMI projects. The one are the consortia, and the other one is the industry. As our event has always been extremely patient-centric, what is the role of patients? I know that one of your colleagues who is dealing with patients will take part in the sessions afternoon. But how patients join such calls and such initiatives?
Yeah, thank you for this question, and it is indeed a very important component of IMI, the whole IMI strategy actually. And from the beginning, we've been very interested in understanding how best to involve patients in projects, not only in projects though, in the way IMI works. And this has been a journey, Dimitar. It's been quite a complex journey, and it was started with a fantastic project called UPATI, which has built a toolkit for educating patients on what we do in terms of medicines R&D, and this has been a huge success. And now this toolkit has been translated into many languages. Some national platforms have been generated that mimic the UPATI platform European-wide. I think there are now 21 national platforms of UPATI. And so that was how we started. And of course, we've learned a lot of how to involve patients. At the beginning, the patients, I think, their own thinking about how they were being engaged in IMI projects was very much a box ticked. And this has matured now into much more involvement, real involvement. And in fact, I know that my colleague Eli Karagiani will talk about this later on, but we've developed now a pool of patient experts where we treat the patient expert the same way as we treat an expert in clinical research, an expert in health economy, an expert in ethics, or whoever we would have on evaluation panels. And we include patients now systematically in our evaluation panel for evaluating projects. We're also involving them in closeout meetings and in other strategic areas. And I think this is paving the way nicely for, as you know, there'll hopefully be a new program, a new public-private partnership that will kick off next year as part of Horizon Europe. I can't talk very much about that because the details haven't been set, but in the patient engagement part of that will be very upfront, will be very important. And I think we're going towards this patient and citizen, because every citizen in Europe is a patient at some stage or another. And we want to integrate that voice in a much more meaningful way. So our whole strategy has changed over a decade, and I think we're still on that journey. We haven't finished, but I think we have a lot of, I think at least 40% of the portfolio has serious patient engagement involvement in the project. And this is just growing now. And we have, as I say, some dedicated projects that are patient-centric. The first one was UPATI. There's now another one called Paradigm. And I'm sure in the future program there'll be many more. Unfortunately, this is the last year of when we allocate funds, and all of our calls are are done. So we'll be needing some fresh budget for 2021, where we will be going out to our stakeholders and the patient groups, of course, and patients themselves are a very important group. By the way, very important to note that we can, using the European Commission funds, we can fund patient organizations, we can fund patients, we can fund this type of activity within the project. They are eligible costs, as are regulators and HTA bodies and so on. So this is one of the advantages of IMI, where, as you know, we try and build these complex multidisciplinary consortia that include all of the players that we need to advance health innovation.
Thank you. This was really a long journey. Now let's take about another long journey, which was not that successful. It's a long journey of the role of Bulgaria in the IMI. I think I know you since 5, 6, or 7 years. We met first time in London on an event of Financial Times, and we start talking about improving the position of Bulgaria. And the position of Bulgaria at that time and later on was extremely unfortunate because there was virtually no communication. Now we have a better communication, and I know that Bulgarian consortia has started to apply for funding. What's your impression?
So it's a real challenge, and I don't think Bulgaria is isolated in this. We have European-wide this challenge of the so-called EU 13 countries, where we don't have the participation that we would like to see, and there's no scientific reason why Bulgarians and Romanians and Croatians and others shouldn't be more participating in IMI projects. But I think there is an issue in terms of the networks that can be built. Now, recently, Bulgaria has applied more to IMI. Unfortunately, they have not been successful, and that's. But I don't want them to be disheartened or disillusioned, because other countries have been down this path, and we're getting more participation and more success now from Romania and Croatia. It's still very low, but if we just take an example of Spain, which is obviously a Western European country, but in IMI 1, Spain was not that performant. It's a low percentage of financial things going to Spain, but they managed in IMI 2, because of aggressive networking and proactivity and just keeping going, I would say, have managed to increase by 150% the financial things going to the financial benefits going to Spain. And this is reflected in the number of participations, the number of projects that are led by the Spanish investigators, and in fact, the number of IMI2 projects that are led by Spanish investigators is very impressive. And so they have managed to turn around the system by really enforcing their abilities to network internally. So less, I would say, less competition, internal competition, and more collective playing, and then being brave and very proactive in wanting to lead in some of these initiatives. Now, they haven't been a success from the beginning, and it took a number of years. So people should not be discouraged. There is no, as I say, there's no scientific excellence issue in Bulgaria or any of these other Eastern European countries. But I think there is an issue with the networks there that need to be created. And I know you, Dimitar, are doing a lot of work in this area, but I think collectively, Romania, Croatia, Bulgaria need to build together more collective approaches to this, and then you will be successful, I'm sure.
Thank you very much. I'm also optimistic, and actually one of the missions of this event and also of your participation here is to encourage scientists to be more proactive and not to have internal complexes saying that they are not feasible for projects. That's not true. The projects in which we have participated as an ecosystem has shown that our level of knowledge is almost equal to the knowledge which is in the so-called Western countries. So it's just a matter of time. And
Yes.
when we speak a matter of time, IMI2 is going to a good end. What will be IMI3? As far as you can say, of course, without disclosing delicate topics.
So obviously, there's quite a lot already in the public domain, in the thinking around this. It's the first thing I'll say is that it won't be a reiteration of IMI. It won't be IMI3. It'll have another brand, another different approach, and this is because of two main changes that are occurring. One is that from the private side, the partnership will be expanded to include sectors other than the pharmaceutical industry as full partners and full governing board members. And this is a trend that we have seen actually in IMI2, because we have now projects that are led by diagnostic companies like Pierre Meulien, and we have other industries like the imaging industry, of course, the ICT, health ICT, in terms of all of the informatics companies. They've been involved, but now they're going to be much more involved because they're going to be full partners. So both MedTech Europe, that is the association that looks after the diagnostic and medical device companies in Europe, and an organization called COSIR, which looks after all the instrumentation and high-end electronics and so on and so forth. So those two bodies are joining FPIA. So we will have the pharma, diagnostic, and medical instruments, instrument makers. We have all of those as part of the new program. And this will be able to harness what's going on anyway in terms of the convergence of technologies. I mean, in personalized medicine, as you know, Dimitar, you have the medicine, but you also have a diagnostic, biomarker development, imaging that go along with this use of in a personalized way. And so these things need to come together. And I think those will have an impact on everything, the way we deliver healthcare, the way we reimburse healthcare. I mean, a lot of the things. So health economics will be involved. We will have social sciences involved. Patients become a key part of this. And of course, on the public side, we have the European Commission that will be committing, again, significant funds to this. The other main difference is that there's a huge push for a more open agenda to be created and co-created in the words of the Commission, and I think this is going to allow much more input from stakeholders, including patients, but also including SMEs, biotech companies, other major players, to be able to carve out, what we should do and strategize with us what we should do. So they're the two main changes of the new program. We hope that, well, because as you know, the legislative procedure is quite long and the budgets are still a little bit up in the air. So we need to understand what the formalization of those things will be, but we still hope to be able to kick it off in 2021.
Thank you very much. Now I'm looking at the clock, and amazingly how fast the time is running when you speak with a good friend. Pierre, thank you very much for this comprehensive information, for your continuous support, and I wish you good luck I hope to meet you soon, really, in person. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dimitar. I've really enjoyed the chat. I hope others have too, and I'm very looking forward to meeting you face to face again.
Thank you.